All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm sure we'll have a few stragglers come in. Like I just said, we left off in Nehemiah chapter 2 last time. Just to recap where we're at. Nehemiah, who's serving in the household of the king of Persia as a cupbearer to the king, has heard word about the state of Jerusalem. It is in complete disrepair. The walls and gates are broken down. When it was taken over by Nebuchadnezzar, it was almost completely destroyed. The temple had been destroyed. The city had been flattened. The walls and gates burned and destroyed. And there had been, after the captivity of Jews going into Babylon, then Babylon being overtaken by the Persians, there had been waves of Jews going back to Jerusalem. And the first wave that went back went for the purpose of rebuilding the temple. So they accomplished that. The next wave that went back went with Ezra to reform the worship of the temple. And then now Nehemiah, who's heard word about the state of the city, years and years and years after Jews had been able to go back to Jerusalem, it was still in disrepair. And that really broke his heart. And he was distraught about the state of the city. And we might ask, well, what's the big deal, right? The temple's there and there are people there. They're obviously making it enough to earn a living and to survive. What's the big deal about the walls? And we talked about that several weeks ago. Walls were the symbol of strength for a city. And so you can imagine in this day and age where someone, it was common for an army just to come up, walk through your city and take you captive and take all your stuff and kill you and just rampage over you. If you didn't have walls were super important. They were that huge barrier line of defense for anybody, any attacker who would try to come in.
And it was also a good place to pour burning oil down from tar or something.
Yeah. And you could get on top of these walls, right? And you could see for miles and miles and miles because Jerusalem's situated on a hillside like it is. And so walls were very much a symbol of strength, but they were also literally physically for the strength of the city. And if you didn't have walls, you were very vulnerable to attack from the outside. And what that meant for you, if you lived in the city or worked in the city, was you could never be at peace and you could never be comfortable. And so that really, it broke Nehemiah's heart. And God lit a fire. He stirred in him this heart and this desire to go and be a part of the solution to this problem. And so Nehemiah prayed about this for 4 months at least after he heard about it, that God would give him an opportunity with the king so that he could make a request to him. And that's what we covered last time. In the first part of Nehemiah 2 is Nehemiah got his chance before the king. It says that in the month of Nisan, 20th year of King Artaxerxes, the king noticed that Nehemiah was sad, that he was downtrodden. And this concerned Nehemiah because it's not a good thing to be sad in the king's presence. In some cases, that would mean death penalty for you. But
Beaten until they cheer up.
yeah. But the king was genuinely concerned about Nehemiah, and he asked further about what is it? Why are you sad like you are? And so Nehemiah had the open door that he'd been praying for to tell the king about the state of his homeland and that he had this desire to go back and to rebuild the walls. And so he made his appeal to the king, and he didn't just stop there. He actually made further requests. He asked of the king that he would provide resources in order to make this building project happen. And the king granted his request, and Nehemiah, throughout all of this, recognized where the true source of blessing was coming from, right? It wasn't just that the king had been generous, and he was thankful for that. But beyond that, he recognized that the God of heaven was faithful to his promises, and that he had been generous to him, and he had granted him favor before the king. And so, because of that, the king sent him on his way, on his journey, long journey, 1,000 miles or so, from Susa or Babylon area where he was to Jerusalem. And along with him, the king sent things beyond his request. He equipped him with,
Thank you, sir.
Yep, with officers of the army and protection for his journey. And he gave him letters that he had requested to ask for resources when he got there, and to give him safe passage with the rulers of the area beyond the river, and that's beyond the Euphrates River. So where we landed last time was in verses 9 and 10, when Nehemiah says, "Then I came to the governors of the province beyond the river and gave them the king's letters. Now the king had sent with me officers of the army and horsemen. But when Sanballat the Horonite and Tobiah the Ammonite servant heard this, it displeased them greatly that someone had come to seek the welfare of the people of Israel." And so we're introduced there to the some of the antagonists of the story of Nehemiah. And we'll see them going forward, because they really don't want to see this work happen, this God-ordained work to rebuild the walls of Israel. They didn't want to see that. They wanted to see Israel, their enemies, stay in this place of vulnerability and most likely anxiousness and instability because of the state of their city. So that's where we pick up now. We're going to break this up into some sections tonight. We're going to try to cover a very huge chunk of Scripture. And so first, if somebody can pick up and read in Nehemiah chapter 2, verses 11 through 16. 11 through 16.
I went to Jerusalem, and after staying there 3 days, I set out during the night with a few others. I had not told anyone what my God had put in my heart to do for Jerusalem. There were no mounts with me except the one I was riding on. By night I went out through the valley gate toward the Jackal Well and the Dung Gate, examining the walls of Jerusalem, which had been broken down, and its gates, which had been destroyed by fire. Then I moved on toward the Fountain Gate and the King's Pool, where there was not enough room for my mount to get through. So I went up the valley by night, examining the wall. Finally, I turned back and re-entered the valley gate. The officials did not know where I had gone or what I was doing, because as yet I had said nothing to the Jews or the priests or the nobles or the officials or any others who would be doing the work.
All right, so Nehemiah's there. He's made it to Jerusalem. And it says that he was there for 3 days, and then he arose in the night without anyone knowing, and he went out and he went around the walls of the city. Why do you think he would do something like that?
Because he hadn't told anybody yet really why he was there. They maybe had suspected it, but he said they didn't really know. He hadn't told anybody, and he just kind of wanted to get out there and maybe take a gander for himself and just really figure out what the deal was without a lot of questions about what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Would be what I would think.
Yeah. Anybody have anything to add to that? Yeah. Why would he not want to tell anyone there that what he had come for? They've got to know.
Yeah, he wanted to get his ducks in a row.
He's there for some purpose, right? He's coming on, on authority of the king. He's come with this entourage.
And that's probably a lot of it right there, because there was all these people with him. He kind of really needed to get a feel for what was going on first because if you started telling people, then they would start asking a million questions. You know how it is whenever if you're in charge of a project, everybody's looking at you for it, and they start asking you, bombarding you with questions. But if you don't really know what it is you're about to do, or exactly how you want to do it, or how God wants to do it through you, you're just trying to field off questions. And so you kind of got to get time to kind of examine, figure out what's there, and say, okay, Lord, now what we're going to do here, and get some direction first, and then before you start to speak and tell people, okay, this is what we're doing, this is what you're doing, this is what we're going to do next.
Yeah.
And that's my thought.
Yeah. How quickly can we make a mess of things if we just act without
assessing first?
Yeah, surveying the situation, knowing what is the actual task that we're going to do.
Well, he was getting his plan ready.
Right, that's it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
And Nehemiah, he's obviously a good planner, right? That's one of the strengths, one of the things that God had equipped him with to be able to do this job. Because we talked about that last week, because obviously Nehemiah had planned about how he was going to talk to the king when he did get that opportunity, and he did pray about it for months, seeking God's guidance on that. And this is the same thing, right? We talked about how important it is to both trust God with our plans, but also to be planning when God gives you direction, right? We don't want to fly blind into any sort of situation or any project or any work that we can get into if we can help it, right? That's just a wise thing to do, right? To survey what is the actual task, and then think about how are we going to make that happen? How can we get it organized so that when I do approach the people with it, there's a cohesive plan and there's a vision, right? And so that's important for us even now, both in the secular things that we do in our jobs and in organizing families and all those sort of things. But it's important within the church too. And God has established for us a system of authority and overseeing in the church, and He's equipped men for that purpose to serve in those areas of responsibility and leadership, so that the vision can be cast, and then we can follow in as we see that vision cast. Anybody have anything else to point out on that little section? You can look on your map that I gave you there. It's two-sided. The green side is the sections of the walls that are built, and then the orange side is it has the list of the gates on there. So you can follow from where Nehemiah does his survey, right? It says that he went out by the valley gate. You can see the valley gate is on the left-hand side of also to note, Jerusalem has been various shapes and sizes over the years, right? By the time 70 AD rolls around, there are like two more giant sections that have been added on to the city from what you see here, when those walls were destroyed by the Romans. So over time it has changed. This is a good guesstimate of what the shape of the city was like and where these gates and walls were, based off of archaeology that's being done now and biblical study and those sort of things. They do say that they have found a lot of the parts of Nehemiah's wall as they've done excavation. And it looks a lot like what you would think a rushed together, piling rubble back up to make a wall would look like. So it very much fits with the biblical story on that. But you can see, everybody see the valley gate there, sort of in the middle on the left side. So he goes out there. and he makes his journey south. And so you see the Dung Gate is at the very south tip of the city there. He makes his way back up north, going up the east side. And the area there of the wall that's near the Kidron Valley is the area where he says that it was so decimated. There was so much rubble there, he couldn't navigate it. And so he had to go way around in order to investigate that. And it's also a very steep area. If you look there, you can find pictures of Jerusalem now and see this area. So that's what he did. Then he circled back. He went back into the city. No one knew what he had done or why he had done it. Okay. This map is not for your study, and I'm going to give you a test on it. I'm a visual learner, and it's helpful for me to see, to put this into a picture.
What about, you didn't mention any of these other gates that are up in the top half, the northern part of the map? The Horse Gate, Fish Gate?
Yeah, I'm not sure why he didn't go that way. It may be that the worst areas of damage were in the south. And so we wanted to get a really good picture of that. So the temple had been rebuilt up there in the northern section, and so you would think logical that some of that had been cleaned up in that process. So that may be why. It's just a guess.
What are the stairs from City of David? What is that? At the very tip, kind of way down at the bottom, inside the wall,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
right before the King's Garden.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
But the stairs, like, what was the City of David? Did these stairs go to a city or something?
This is the city of David.
That's
Yeah,
called
it's
City of
just
David?
the.
Okay. What's the stairs?
Jerusalem is the city of David.
It was obvious that had been built up as a very nice area because the King's Gardens were down there and the Pool of Siloam is down there.
King's
So it's probably a grand entrance sort of thing, coming into the city.
Dung Gate.
Yeah, by the Dung Gate. All right. Somebody pick it up and read verses 17 through 20 for us. Going once, going twice.
I can read more if you want me to.
Go ahead.
Then I said to them, you see the trouble we are in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace. I also told them about the gracious hand of my God on me and what the king had said to me. They replied, let us start rebuilding. So they began this good work. But when Sanballat, or whatever, the Hornite, and Tobiah, the Ammonite official, and Geshem, the Arab, heard about it, they mocked and ridiculed us. What is this you are doing? They asked. Are you rebelling against the king? You said 320?
Yep.
320 also?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I answered them by saying, the God of heaven will give us success. We, his servants, will start rebuilding. But as for you, you have no share in Jerusalem or any claim or historic right to it.
Okay.
Yes, he told them, didn't he?
He did. So we see two very different responses, right, to Nehemiah's plea with them to build. So we talked about it. He surveys the situation. He gets a good understanding of what they're up against and what it's going to take to make it happen. And when he has that picture in mind, he comes back to the people and he casts the vision before them, right? What are the appeals that he makes to them? What are the important parts? That's verses 17 and 18.
He points out to them what the problems are. That's the first thing. We're in trouble.
Yep.
Points it out. And then he turns around with the good news about telling them about the gracious hand of God and what the king has said to him.
Yep. So he starts with the why. Or really, they're both the why. why should we invest ourselves in this task that he's come to do? Right? That's the question he's got to answer. And so the first why is the problem, right? He explains the problem and why it is a problem. That the city lies in ruins with its gates burned. And that's a bad deal. And that's the thing that had really burdened his heart. And so a big part of that vision casting is to accurately describe the problem and to help people understand like why it is such a problem and why I'm burdened about it, why you should be burdened about it as well. It is interesting that these guys had been there in the city for so many years and had not taken up the task to rebuild the walls. And we don't really know why, the ins and outs of why that is, other than some of the opposition that they faced in just getting the temple rebuilt and knowing the sort of opposition they're going to have from guys like Sanballat and Tobiah. But anyway, that really troubled Nehemiah, and he brought that to them, and he exposed it before them. Right? Hey guys, this is an issue. We need to solve it. But he didn't just stop there. The real why should you invest in this is because God is invested in, right? Right? Because he shares his testimony about how God had put this on his heart and how he had been with him every step of the way and how God had shown favor on this project and on his desire, and how the king had responded with favor towards the project. And ultimately, like we talked about earlier, that recognizing that the source of that is God Almighty, right? It wasn't that the king was just generous. It was God had put it in his heart to do this and to allow them to go back and to rebuild and to supply, a lot of the funds and the resources to make it happen. And so you should be able to look at that as someone in Jerusalem and say, yeah, I need to be in on this, right? This is a problem and God is providing a solution to the problem. And that's exactly what the majority of the people did there. We'll as we read through chapter 3, we'll see there's the overwhelming majority of people chip in and they are a part of this work. The people rose up and said, "Let us rise and build." And so they were all in. But as soon as that happened, the naysayers come out, right? Which is typical. Whenever something new happens, whenever something big is about to happen, you're always going to have naysayers that you have to battle, right? And so we're reintroduced to Sanballat, Tobiah. They come out and they speak against this work and say, "What is this that you're doing? Are you rebelling against the king?" is the accusation. How does Nehemiah respond? He responds with what is true, right? Which is how we should always respond to naysayers, or most especially when we apply that to our Christian life, to when the enemy attacks and gives opposition to the task that God has given you. How are you going to respond? When you're tempted to sin, how are you going to respond? We should follow the example of Christ, and we should respond with truth, right? The best way is to quote Scripture, like Christ did. But he does respond with what is true, that God is blessing this project. He will make this thing prosper because we know it is his, I'm paraphrasing and adding to, but because we know it is God's will, we have seen him act in this, we know that he is backing this project, that he is making it happen, and so we're confident that it is going to happen. Yes, sir. And you have no portion, right, or claim. You have no say-so in this matter. Because you are opposing to God, right? You are not a part of the chosen people of God, right? You are one who is planting your feet in the ground to oppose the work that God is doing. I don't remember if we talked about this last time when we introduced Sanballat Tobiah, but this really sheds light on the way that the Jews and the Samaritans despised each other in the New Testament, because Sanballat's from that area. And it really goes back way beyond that. We talked about that some last time we were together, about how these people groups had been at odds with each other for a long time. And that both of these guys are likely descendants of Lot in some shape or fashion. And so we see that play out, and it really escalates over time to the point where in Jesus' day and age, Jews will take like a special trip to go around Samaritan territory so that they don't even see these people because they hate them so much. So anyway, when opposition comes, we should respond with truth. And we know that Paul makes it clear, Ephesians 6, we don't wrestle with flesh and blood, like in this matter, right? Who is our enemy? Who is our battle against in our Christian lives? Spiritual forces of evil, right? And so when we're faced with opposition to the work that God is trying to do in our lives, to any work that God calls us to, we should respond the way Nehemiah did, with truth. And we shouldn't lord that over them, but we should just, it is what it is. This is the truth. And then walk confidently and boldly in that truth. Okay? All right, moving on, we're going to cover all of Nehemiah chapter 3. And this is one of those chapters I was warning you about, because it has tons of Jewish names and families and things like that. And so I'm not going to stress any of you on reading chapter 3. I'll do the reading for you, and I'll butcher all these names, and we can laugh about it, right? But there are some important points that we can draw from this chapter, I think. So starting in verse 1 of chapter 3 of Nehemiah. Then Elisha, the high priest, rose up with his brothers, the priests, and they built the sheep gate. They consecrated it and set its doors. They consecrated it as far as the Tower of the 100, as far as the Tower of Hanel. And next to him, the men of Jericho built. And next to them, Zakur, the son of Imri, built. The sons of Hanassah built the fish gate. They laid its beams and set its doors, its bolts, and its bars. And next to them, Meremoth, the son of Uriah, son of Hakaz, repaired. And next to them, Meshullam, the son of Berechiah, son of Meshezabel, repaired. And next to them, Zadok, the son of Bana, repaired. And next to them, the Tekoites repaired. And their nobles would not stoop to serve the Lord. Joiada, the son of Pesah, and Meshullam, the son of Besadiah, repaired the gate of Yeshanah. And they laid its beams and set its doors, its bolts, and its bars. And next to them repaired Melatiah, the Gibeonite, and Jadon, the Meronothite, the men of Gibeon and of Mizpah, the seat of the governor of the province beyond the river. Next to them, Uzziel, the son of Parhiah, goldsmiths, repaired. Next to him, Hananiah, one of the perfumers, repaired. and they restored Jerusalem as far as the broad wall. Next to them, Raphiah, the son of Hur, ruler of half the district of Jerusalem, repaired. Next to them, Jedediah, the son of Harumpah, repaired, opposite his house. And next to him, Hattush, the son of Hasabaniah, repaired. Malchiah, the son of Harim, and Hasub, the son of Pahath Moab, repaired another section of the Tower of the Ovens. Next to him, Shallum, the son of Haloesh, ruler of the half of the district of Jerusalem, repaired, he and his daughters. Hanun and the inhabitants of Zanoah repaired the valley gate. They rebuilt it and set its doors, its bolts, and its bars, and repaired 1,000 cubits of the wall as far as the dung gate. Malchiah, the son of Rechab, ruler of the district of Beth Hakarim, repaired the dung gate. He rebuilt it, set its doors, its bolts, and its bars. And Shallum, the son of Kolhoez, ruler of the district of Mizpah, repaired the fountain gate. He rebuilt it and covered it and set its doors, its bolts, and its bars. And he built the wall of the pool of Shelah of the king's garden as far as the stairs that go down from the city of David. After him, Nehemiah, the son of Azbuk, ruler of half the district of Bethzur, repaired to a point opposite the tombs of David as far as the artificial pool and as far as the house of the mighty men. After him, the Levites repaired. Rehum, the son of Bani. Next to him, Hashabiah, ruler of half the district of Keilah, repaired for his district. After him, their brothers repaired. Bavai, the son of Henadad, ruler of half the district of Keilah. Next to him, Ezer, the son of Yeshua, ruler of Mizpah, repaired another section opposite the ascent of the army of the buttress. After him, Baruch, the son of Zabai, repaired another section from the buttress to the door